Hello everybody, this is part 2 of the Android Development Beginners course that I'm doing. In this video, I'll take you through the process of developing UI for your Android applications. So without further ado, let's get started. Open Android Studio and click on New Project. Here, select an empty activity. There are various different templates available here. You can try out them for practice later. Now, you have to specify a name for your project. In this case, I will just simply say Android Development Course Part 2. And this is the minimum Android, basically the minimum Android version that your app will support. So in this case, it is Android 5. Click on Finish to generate your project. Alright, so now that the project is built, we can get started. You must have noticed that there are two files in here, activity_main.xml and mainActivity.kd. Now, this content file is basically you put all your logic for the application in here. Now, this activity has a layout file. Now this XML file, the activity_main.xml, is basically where you define the structure of your application. This activity_main.xml can be found under the resource directory inside the layout folder. Switch the split tab. In split window, you can see both the code and the zip design simultaneously. As you can see, there is a text view and a button inside a constraint layout. Now, constraint layout is basically the parent of these two children views. Any element visible on the screen is considered as view in Android. To hold these views in position, we place them inside container views. First, I will remove all these code in here, and I will change this constraint layout to be a linear layout. Let me simply just add a few text view in there. Now, as you can see, the hello and the world are placed next to each other. This is because of the linear layout. As the name suggests, the linear layout arranges the views inside it in a linear fashion. Each element is placed after the previous one. So in this case, the world is placed after the hello text view. Now, there are a few properties that you can change. For example, I can change the orientation. Orientation of the linear layout to be vertical. When I use the vertical orientation, the linear layout will arrange all the elements inside it vertically. The default behavior of the linear layout, as you saw earlier, was to arrange it in a horizontal fashion. Now, let's take a look at some of these attributes of these views. For example, the text view that I created here, you must have noticed the two attributes that are there, the layout width and the layout height. Now these define the sizing of the view. Wrap content basically means that the bounding box of this text view is shrunk to take the minimal width and the minimal height. you can change this. Say for example, if I change the layout height to match parent. Now what this basically does is that the height will now match the size of its parent container, which is, in this case, the parent container's height is also set to match parent. And since that is the root view or the root container, it is going to take the entire height of the screen, as you can see over here. Now there's another very useful property of linear layout, which is gravity. Now you can set where the children views will be placed inside the linear layout. In this case, I have set the gravity to center. This means that the views would be centered vertically as well as horizontally. You can change this to center horizontal if you only want them to be centered horizontally. You can also add multiple attributes by adding this vertical line. Now there's another property called layout gravity. Say for example, if I was to specify layout gravity to be top, then what this does is basically, first the linear layout will try to center horizontally and vertically all of its children views, but then layout gravity in this child text view will override that and be set to top. Now let's take a look at relative layout. The positioning of elements in relative layout is relative to other views. Now by default, all the views would be cramped together in the top left hand corner of the screen. Now say I want this world to be placed next to the hello text view. So what I need now is an ID. In this case, I'll just say hello text. Now this ID now helps me to reference that text view. No two views in a layout can have the same ID. So now if I need to place the world text next to hello, what I can do is layout to end of and now pass that ID. Now you can see the world text is now placed next to hello. I can also specify that this layout need to be below the hello text. Now that is how you use the linear layout and the relative layout. Now let's take a look at the attributes of different views. The first one is the text. You can add margin to your layout. Now you specify the margins in dp. Now dp stands for density pixels in here. Now say I want to have a padding for this text view as well of 12 dp. Now as you can see, this is the bounding box of this text view. It has a 24 dp margin around it and a 12 dp padding inside. Say you want to increase the size of this text, then you can say text size 18.18 sp. Now the default value is 14 sp for a text view. Say you want it to be even larger, so you can specify 24 sp. You can also make the font bold by using text style and set that to bold. You can see there are other options as well, that is italic. Now say you want to change the color of this text, then you have to specify the text color. and in this case I'll just use color black. Now let's take a look at another commonly used view, that is a button. Let's actually put that under the text. And let's give it a margin start to only give it a margin to the left side, that is 24 dp. As you can see of right now, there is no text inside there is no label for this button. We can add a label for a button by specifying the text, say click me. Now you can see by default all the text of a button is capitalized. You can change this default behavior of a button by changing the attribute text all caps to false. Now let's actually make this match parent on both the views. Now you can see that the text in the button is centered but not in the text view. This is because the text alignment property of a text view is set to the start. You can change it to center. And there you go. Now, as you can see, the button only has a margin to the start of it and not to the end of it. Now, since we want to apply the same margin to both the sides of the button, instead of specifying them separately like margin end to 24 dp, what you can do is basically remove both of the lines and set margin horizontal to 24 dp. Another one of the most commonly used view in Android is a text field. Let's actually create one over here. It is called EditTexts. Layout below hello text. But now, as you can see, the edit text and the button are overlapping each other. So what I can do now is give an ID to the edit text as well. Say for example, edit text. Now, as you can see, it is giving an error. This is because if you want to create a new ID for a particular view, you need to follow this syntax @+ID / and then the ID for that particular view. In this case, edit text. Now, when referencing that ID, you just omit the plus sign that is there. As you can see, @ID, and then I would simply say edit text. The button is below that edit text. I simply want a margin to the top of this button, so 20p. Now, for this text field, I need a placeholder text in there. In Android, we call it hint. So I can say Android hint and then say enter your name. Enter your name. I'll also give it a margin horizontal of 24 dp. Now there you go. You just created a UI for your Android application. In the next video, we will dive a little further in the development of UI